All right, I'm here with Peter Lavelle, host of RT's CrossTalk. Peter, Trump told his intelligence officials, his intelligence czars, to go back to school, and now it looks like he's walking it back. Now they've found, common ground.
Same page.
Yeah, now they're on the same page. What's going on here, Peter? What's your read on this?
I think broadly speaking, and I'm not going to defend either the president or the intelligence community, obviously. But what it is that we have these traditional narratives about American foreign policy and how they're described as interests around the world. And in some ways, what the intelligence community had to say about Iran was really quite interesting. While it's sticking to the nuclear deal, and it is, okay, the AII, the International Atomic Energy Agency, has put them in compliance, which I thought was honest, at least, of them to say. But Iran's attempt to expand its influence in the region, I think that's nonsense. Okay, that's just something that you hear over and over and over again. There's not much basis for it. As a matter of fact, it's American blunders in the Middle East that enhance Iran's influence just by default. Okay, I mean, do you think the Iranians were against the Americans taking out Saddam Hussein? No, I mean they had fought an 8-year war, Iran and Iraq. Okay, fine, take care of them. Right. Afghanistan with Al-Qaeda, sworn enemies of the Iranians in the Iranian Revolution. Okay, so I mean, thank you very much. So I mean, they win on those two accounts. They had to do nothing to enhance their position in that region. But then, they talked about North Korea, which of course was pouring cold water on Trump's initiative. To what degree it's his initiative? I mean, he says he wants to have a denuclearized Korean peninsula. It's the Koreans, North and South, doing all the carrying of water, all the heavy lifting, all the work, and you could tell by the collective wisdom of the intelligence community they don't like that idea. Okay, there's no evidence that they will denuclearize at all. I don't know if that's true. I think it's going to be on the table for a very long time. It's called confidence building. It takes one baby step after another baby step, and you keep doing it and you keep doing it. And the American intelligence community and defense community don't want that to happen. They don't want that because it's a nice piece of their annual expenditures. All right, wars and defense is a racket. Okay, and they want to keep that racket going, and Donald Trump threatens it. So I think there was a misunderstanding on that. It's because of these traditional narratives. You have these intelligence community people and military. They still live in the prior century. They cannot understand how the world is changing. It's becoming multipolar. The unipolar moment is over, but they don't know that, and that's why we start getting this tension here. All right, and so China and Russia are the new foes, and their allies. Well, they're moving towards. Russia and China don't have strategic alliances, neither country. But in fact, it's almost essentially happened, and it's the United States that has created that. Okay, if you're not allowed in the club, or you're not invited. I mean, then those that are not invited are going to probably find communion. And that's exactly what's happened. And that train has left the station. It's not going to be reversed. No way, because under George W. Bush, under Barack Obama, and Donald Trump, they're not. The U.S. is simply not trustworthy. They won't keep their word. Gaddafi. He got rid of his weapons of mass destruction, okay, and then they destroyed his country. Right. Saddam Hussein had no weapons of mass destruction, and they invaded and destroyed his country. So I mean, why would anyone believe anyone in the White House or the National Security Council? Okay, I wouldn't. You'd be foolish if you did. And North Korea knows that. Then they, it was I remember when Bolton said, well, there's always the Libya scenario, and of course there are two different understandings of that. Bolton was saying, if you disarm, we'll become friends. But the North Koreans said, no, when you disarm, you'll destroy us. Okay, that's how it's interesting how one event can have totally different interpretations. Okay, depending on who's saying it. So the intelligence community is out of sync with Donald Trump very, very much, because they do not want to see his foreign policy as much as you could call it a foreign policy to succeed. Again, they want to keep American troops in Syria,
Right.
obviously in contradiction to what Trump said. What Trump is doing is different, okay, or we're not sure yet. But the interesting takeaway here is that the intelligence community feels emboldened, brazen enough to openly contradict Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump had to pull them in and say, oh, basically we agree. No, Mr. President, they don't agree with you, and they're actually working against what your directives are. I hold questionable those objectives. We've discussed many times, and we will in the future. But it shows the president of the United States that is less and less control of his foreign policy. Everything that comes out with Venezuela is going through Bolton. It's not Donald Trump. He might tweet about it, but I mean, he's not driving it.
Yeah, and he's tweeting stuff that just gets him in trouble. And it reminds me kind of, Peter, of I think it was the first season of House of Cards, where Frank Underwood was the vice president. He was steering the president, towards his eventual downfall, and he was steering him in such a manipulative way. And I kind of see Bolton as that type of figure that's kind of sitting there, and he's, steering Trump towards an eventual disaster, because his alliances don't seem to be with the president, but with the deep state, the intelligence community, the military-industrial conflicts. What do you make of that analogy?
Yeah, the point is that Donald Trump wants to build his wall. Okay, that's Trump 24/7. All right, all of this other stuff. I think it's very marginal to him. He doesn't like to talk about it. Remember the Helsinki summit came off very badly. He can speak to a stadium in Oklahoma City. Yeah, he can get the crowd going. But at these summits, he doesn't. He comes off very wooden, unprepared, agitated, and I think he looks at people like Bolton, Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, as people that can carry water for him, particularly on Venezuela. Lindsey Graham went against the president when it came to Syria. As a matter of fact, you have the Senate voting, all Democrats voting. It was almost, I think it wasn't unanimous, to keep the United States in NATO. Well, it's a meaningless vote. It's non-binding. But it's an absolute slap in the face to Trump.
Right, exactly. They're just constantly cutting his legs from under him.
And Republicans go along with it. See, I have said here, and I may be wrong, but I think that there's a scenario being built right now as we speak, because of the announcement in December about Syria, is that some of the Democrats in the leadership of Congress, both houses, are going to their counterparts in the GOP, say, look, we can all argue about the wall, but empire, is that really to be debated? We have a very, very broad and deep consensus about empire. We can't have that. We cannot have it. And if he doesn't get in line, we've got Bolton, we've got people watching him, but we can't control his Twitter feed. And that can create a consensus.
Right.
How many Republicans will it take to get the Senate to vote on a article of impeachment? It doesn't take too many. And that's what they want to do. For the sake of the nation, for the sake of, well, they won't say empire, but for national security. That is in the cards. I think that's being played because you have people like Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham that could be flipped on that, I think. It's because they're all vested into it, okay? Deeply vested in it. And so I've never seen I think in my lifetime, I think ever since like the Church Committee or something like that in the 1970s, where you have the houses of Congress passing these non-binding resolutions against the president's power to act as the chief executive of American foreign policy. I've never seen it before.
Yeah,
I've never.
Yeah, the philosophy of the office is bigger than the man, and in order to keep that office, that's empire. They're not going to let Trump ruin the empire. And I was looking at the photo that came out from that meeting at the Oval Office between, Trump and the intelligence guys. Yeah. And you could just see Bolton kind of lurking there, almost like watching over everything that
gray eminence.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, I mean, I think Bolton, he learned his lesson for such an old, cantankerous man, is that he's not going to let another telephone call to Erdogan happen like that. Okay,
Right.
he's just not going to let that happen. Okay, the thing is, what I'd like to know, and I think everyone would like to know, is what kind of relationship does he have with Bolton? Because it seems to me, the real estate magnate, the bruiser of the New York tabloid wars, Trump doesn't like anyone overshadowing him. I mean, the room isn't big enough for two egos. And what's going on with this dynamic here? And, always qualifying what Trump says in public. I wonder how Trump feels about that. Or just maybe he just feels, he's looking at his poll numbers. He's looking at the re-election. He's looking at investigations into him. Russiagate is ever present. Is that what takes up most of his time? I don't know. We'll find out maybe one day. But when you have someone like John Bolton around, you have people like Marco Rubio, Elliott Abrams. I mean, these are the deep state players of empire. I mean, it has nothing to do with Trump's vision of America first. I mean, they're actually counter to America first. Okay, it's empire first. That's what's in play here.
And finally, Peter, what do you make of the optics from a media perspective as to what Trump tweeted, about the intelligence officials going back to school, and then the next day having a meeting and then kind of saying, well, that was, they were taking out of context and it wasn't really what happened.
The optics of it are really, really bad. I could never imagine. Let's take a real foreign policy president, George Herbert Bush. Okay, that would never happen, never. Okay, and maybe. Is it possible that Bolton gave them talking points? I mean, were they in collusion before they talked to him and say, this is how we're going to explain it, okay, and all that? The optics made him look weak. He looked like he conceded, he caved, and one has to wonder just how much foreign policy plays into his mind here. Okay, I mean, obviously, Bolton spoke the truth. I mean, America's interested in Venezuela's oil capacity. And I think that's something Trump understands. Yeah, okay, let's grab that oil there because he said that about Iraq. I mean, we should have the oil because we liberated you. Okay, I mean, he thinks in that transactional way. And maybe that's what he's thinking in this case here. Though the history of American intervention in Latin America is it's one horror story after another. And does he want to get caught up into something like that? Like I said early in our previous video, there's a lot of assets worth fighting for and maybe even killing for. Is that what he said to the American people about foreign adventures abroad? And will he get caught with it? Because Bolton will say, well, this is what he tweeted. Okay, I just did what he told me to. I mean, do you think anyone in Washington ever takes responsibility? No, it'll be left in Trump's lap. And is that something he's willing to accept and absorb as he faces the electorate? He's been set up again. Great way to put it. He's being set up again. Bolton may tell him,
they've got the oil, let's get it. And Trump says, and it's transactional kind of thinking. But Bolton leaves out the 99% of all the other stuff that's going to happen when you mess around in Latin America or in Venezuela.
Yeah, and like we said in our previous video, I mean, this is not just Venezuela. This is Venezuela, it's Cuba, and Nicaragua. Right. And in Bolton's mind and in Abrams' mind, this is the three-dimensional chess. We're taking out all three simultaneously, okay? Is that what Trump's foreign policy is? Was he even told about it?
No way. I mean, he did not campaign for this stuff at all. I mean, we know he did not campaign for this. And he's going to lose his base if he continues to push this.
Well, and this is the strategy, too, is to keep taking one sliver, like an onion, take one more, skin off, okay? One more, peel it away, where, he loses that part of the electorate, which by some accounts, by some research, did tip some congressional districts where people, high numbers of members, families that had service people in service active duty, and a lot of vets. Vets are the most anti-war people out there, unless you get into the revolving door of, the arms dealing. Okay, but vets are very, very anti-war, anti-intervention. It destroys. I mean, what is it? It's something like 20 vets a day commit suicide in the United States. Yeah. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's not a national emergency. No, not at all. Stormy Daniels is more important than the guys you send over, and they're broken. They come home, they're broken, and they're cast under the bus. Okay, not that they volunteered. I understand that, but there should be a commitment on the part of the state that sent them there to take a modicum of care. I mean, avoiding suicide. I think that should be. That's not a very high bar. Okay, it's really pathetic. But that's what John Bolton and Elliot Abrams being questioned over and over again since Iran-Contra. Do you know what his most common answer is to a question? I don't remember.
That's what Flynn should have said, and Manafort, and all these guys. I don't remember.
Don't remember.
Yeah, that's what they should have said. I'm looking at that picture again, where he's sitting at the Oval Office on that desk, Peter, and he's surrounded by Haspel and Coates and Bolton. I'm saying, God, he's got such a big HR problem.
That's not a happy table. That's not a happy table.
Jeez, I mean, the people he's surrounded with is just these guys are just such snakes.
Trump is incapable of articulating what his foreign policy is. He's incapable of doing it, and he has other mouthpiece people that articulate it for him, but they're articulating theirs in his name with his authority. Yeah. Okay, this is what's happening. All of the qualifications on everything, and it's certainly not his gig, and I don't think it ever will be. And he's going to be. If it's not, how do I say this? If it's not done right, the right way or the wrong way, I don't even know now. If whatever bad outcome, and it will be Trump's.
Oh yeah,
he will own it.
He will own it.
It will be his.
Very well put. Peter Lavelle, host of RT's CrossTalk. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on the notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. And visit the Duran shop, pick up a t-shirt, help support the Duran. In the description box below, you will find links to our PayPal and Patreon pages. Please donate to us. It really, really helps us out a lot. And of course, you can get a copy of this show in audio format on iTunes and SoundCloud, so follow us there. Peter Lavelle, host of RT's CrossTalk. Thank you once again. Until next time, everybody, take care.